we are going to be publishing the recording of today so that others who are not able to join today can watch and take away some insight that we're sharing today. And with that, the recording has started. So let's have a quick look at the agenda that we have prepared today. So for one, the opening that we've already been doing right now, and then we will introduce to you the BTR Guidance and Roadmap tool. This will be done by my colleague Mirella. And then my colleague Carlos will be showcasing the features and use of the tool in a live demonstration of the tool. And finally, we have a section for you to raise your questions and obtain answers to your questions on this tool. So without further ado, I'm very happy to give over to my colleague Mirella.
Thank you so much, and hello everybody, and I hope that you will enjoy today's session. What we are here is for presenting the Biennial Transparency Report Guidance and Roadmap tool, as Marta was saying until before right now. So it's for demonstrating a very excellent collaborative effort that FAO and PAPTA has done in the last year for supporting country in addressing the BTR requirement. And the tool was developed based on what was our experience already working for several years on the MRP and transparency related projects. And the objective is really helping your country in planning the first biennial transparency report. So actually, let's explain a little bit about the biennial transparency report. We don't go in so much detail, but just to clarify that actually right now the current framework is foreseen two main reports to the UNFCCC. One is the national communication, the other one is the biennial update report. Starting from 31st of December 2024, the biennial updated report will be substituted by the biennial transparency report that will contain some elements that are contained in the BUR, the actual BUR, and some of the elements contained in the national communication, plus something very new like the NDC tracking. That is really a proper element, new elements in the biennial transparency report. So the country are foreseen to look at the preparation of these new typologies of report that builds a lot on what was done until far right now, not only in terms of elements and components, but also in terms of the institutional arrangements and the technical capacity already existing in the country. We want also to clarify that the biennial transparency report is the new report, but still the national communication are going to be submitted in the coming years. So this is what is indeed for the UNFCCC Convention, and the biennial transparency report respond exactly to the Paris Agreement. Now, what do we need this tool for? Okay, so the objective is to try to help the country to do this smooth transition. As we say, nothing completely new. It's just a smooth transition from what you have done so far in a more transparent manner. So trying to help you also to set up the transparency system that underpin really the BTR process, and get also an orientation through this tool about the time that is required for the preparation of the biennial transparency report. So how that works, it works based on 6 steps. The guidance helper also to provide you some recommendation on how to improve the quality of the process in the first instance, but also over time. The tool works in a way that poses several questions. That's help to check the national circumstances and the reporting capacity of the country, and then elaborate a country-driven roadmap that is, as we say, the time that are we indicating is based on the experience that we have on the field, but we leave it to the country the maximum flexibility to customize the roadmap based on the actual country circumstances. The tool is based on an Excel, and it's an Excel based, so it's not a Word document. It provides a series of questions with a potential series of reply that you had to fill it in. But Carlos will present shortly really the details on that. So the tool has the objective, first of all, of having a stock taking. I'm sorry for the game of the words, but a stock taking of what actually is happening in the country. Please note that the tool is making a sort of taking stock of the actual situation of the country, but that does not mean that it's covering a full in-country gaps and needs assessment, where a more detailed information the country had to be provide. It helps also to look at the ETF requirement mapping, so it will guide the country to understand new requirements and planning the BTR implementation through these different steps. And at the end, it just generated the roadmap, a proper Gantt chart with a proper timeline that differentiates also activity between capacity building and time for compilation. And that is also provide you the set of the time of the 31st of December 2024 to understand really if you are getting closer or you are really needed to speed up your process in order to be able to submit in timely manner. So the 6 steps that we are talking about, we identified these steps not as rocket science, it's just based on the experience that we had already in the country. So a first step is based on the setting the scenes, identifying the political buy-in and creating the coordination team for submitting the BTR that will take care to the BTR preparation. Then there is this taking stock of the core MRB arrangement that, as I say, it does not necessarily reply the full gap analysis, but provide a series of questions that help you also to understand how to perform and where to go in more detail for your country-specific gap analysis. There is also a section for the planning phase that look at the human resource, the technical, not only in terms of numbers, but also in terms of technical capacity and diverse background for taking care to the different sections of the BTR. And then we have the final, the implementation. After these 4 steps, you are able to generate the roadmap, but we really push you to also to continue after the roadmap generation to look at the other 2 following steps. One is providing you some more insights on the technical expert review. That is a new step where all countries they have to face in the forthcoming years. And what is also very important is remembering that the BTR, as it was the BUR, is a cycle report. So it means that there is time for improvement and for doing better in the next phase. So what we are doing actually right now, we are testing the tools already in a few countries that were part already of our activities under our similar kind of projects. So we are testing in the country and just getting a feedback on the usability and in the clarity of the tool itself. But as you know very well, because most of you received already also the link and the application is the tool is already available online with the documentation, easy to use. You will read it. It forms also the basis of and how to use and installation instructions. And so what we are asking is really that you make the maximum use of the tool, provide the feedback, and eventually request also support in case that you need it. So this is much what I can say right now, but I really ask you to continue to listen because now in details, Carlos will look at the tool and give you a little bit of flavor of how it looks like. Thank you very much.
Exactly. So thank you very much, Mirella, for this introduction to the tool. And now we really want to answer the question, how does the tool work in practice, as Mirella mentioned? So let's go and find out. And for this, I'm going to hand over to our colleague Carlos, who will be displaying this the tool in live action. So please, Carlos.
Thank you very much. Marta, can you confirm that you hear me? Yes, and
Yes.
that you are seeing the screen that I'm projecting?
Yes, hear you and see very well.
Perfect. So yeah, welcome everybody also from my side. My name is Carlos Jesus and I work with the PATPA Secretariat. After Mirela already explained the objectives of the tool, why we created it, and what it's supposed to do, the idea now is that we take a look at the tool together so that we can more or less understand the functionalities of everything that's in here and how it actually looks like in practice. This that you're seeing right now is so to speak, the home of the, not the home, but the main screen that you will see, the opening screen that you will see once you open the tool. First and foremost, I really urge you, and I'm going to show something very quickly here. When you unzip the file that you will download is a zip file. We strongly recommend that you open this folder and that you check the installation instructions. The reason behind that is that, as Mirela was explaining, this is an Excel-based tool that runs macros. And it has happened that some institutions block macros per default in order to, avoid any malware. We assure you that this does not have any malware, but still the installation instructions contain detailed step-by-step with images and so on of how you can basically set the tool so that it works properly on your computer and all the functionalities, the macros are enabled. That being said, let's take a look at the tool. So once you get here, there's the button here that says Start. You click it, and this is just an introduction to the tool, just a welcoming message. Then if you press Next once again, it will bring you to the main menu. This is the homepage of the tool, an image that you might have seen already, and it can bring you to different parts of the tool, the About, the Acknowledgements, Glossary, Disclaimer, Resources, and How to Use. If you click on each of them, they will bring you to another screen. I will not do that right now for the sake of time and so that we can get to the important part of the tool. This button here helps you reset your results, because it happens that when you are answering the tool and replying to the different questions, the tool will save your results in case you want to close it and then restart, or not restart, like resume what you were doing before. The tool will remember your choices, but if you want to start from scratch and do it again, this is the button you should push. Otherwise, please don't push it, because you will lose everything you're doing. So let's take a look now at the tool menu. This is what you see when you click on that. As you can see, you can clearly see the 6 steps. These little boxes on top are the 6 steps that Mirela was describing, arranged somewhat differently. And as you can see here, all the sub-steps that are beneath the little boxes are in gray. That means that if I try to click here, nothing will happen, because you have to go in the right order for the next box to be enabled. And I'm going to explain briefly how that works. So if you click on step 1, it will explain what we mean by this step. By the way, as Mirela was saying, this is not this was basically steps that were generated as a suggestion for ordering the BTR process. They are not written anywhere in the sense that this is what you have to do, but it's meant to guide the user into a kind of a guide, a roadmap, or a better order of the process of how they can approach the process in an orderly manner. This is just an explanation then, so what the step is about and why the step is important. Once you're done reading this, you click on complete, and that will take you to the sub step. But before that, as you can see, there are some words that are highlighted in orange. What this means is that you can click here and it will bring you to a definition in the glossary. So whenever you want to find out more about a specific term, you can click there and it will automatically bring you to the glossary section of that respective word. So when we click completed, we go back to the home page, and then you can see that the next step is enabled. Same thing will happen once we are going over the tool. Before I continue showing you how the tool looks like, we wanted to do a small exercise with you. So I will briefly hand over to Marta back so that she can explain what we're going to do.
Exactly. Thank you very much, Carlos, for this first first inside look into the tool, and I'm going to be sharing a Mentee link right now. In the chat, you will see it, but you will always also see it on the slide that should be appearing once this screen changes. Okay, perfect. So a little Mentee where we want to ask you at which stage of the planning process of the BTR you find yourselves right now. So you can either click the Mentee link on the slide or the Mentee link in the chat, or you can scan the QR code with your phone by opening your camera app. You may have to put in a code. Now, some people that have tried this in our trial did not have to put in a code, so maybe you don't, but I'm putting it there just in case. So the code is 8344 and then 6807, but you may not need it. So I'm going to leave up the slide for just a moment longer to have everyone be able to access the Mentee and give your answer on the question, at which stage of the planning process for the BTR are you? And I can already see answers. I'm going to show them to you in just a moment, but just for a few more people who are joining, like Hamidou, bonjour. If you want to come in at the right moment, you're just on time to participate in the Mentee that we have going on right now. So you can click the link on the slide to the Mentee and access it, possibly entering a code, or you can click the link in the chat, which I will put there. Okay, I can't. Now I will put it again, the link to the Mentee in the chat. For anyone who hasn't entered it, you can enter it now. And now let's have a look at the answers so far. I see 27 people have participated. So let me just quickly switch to the proper screen. And now you should be able to see the results as I can see them. And we can see that a large majority has not yet started. So let's point out that the deadline is in 2024. And maybe then this event today and this tool we are launching is right on time for all of you who have not started yet. We see also 5 have their process ongoing, and 4, apologies, 4 are just starting, and 1 does not know where the process stands at this moment. So 18 now saying not started yet. So we can see that this tool may come just at the right moment, as mentioned, and we will move forward then with presenting this tool to you, which clearly is of interest to the group of people that we have here. So without further ado, let me give back over to Carlos to give you an example, a country example of how this can look like. And Carlos, you're still muted.
Thank you for pointing that out. I was just asking whether you can see the screen.
Yes, it's visible and we can hear you now.
Great. Yeah, thank you very much for that. So as you can see, I did some magic in the back of the room while you were replying to that short survey that we have, because I want to be quick, of course, and just so that you understand what we did here was basically we filled in the questions to the national circumstances posted in each of these steps, as you will see in a minute, with a, so to speak, midway country, a country that's has some sort of already of preparedness, because, and as will be the case with many of you, because of, as you know, the enhanced transparency reports builds on existing MRV arrangements. That means that you might be surprised to see that a lot of the things you might already be doing or you might already have. But still, what you will see here is not a worst case scenario, but it's also not a best case scenario. So let's dive straight into it. So then we were seeing setting the scene, as Mirela was explaining. This is like the whatever you need to kick off the process. And as you can see, the first step, sub-step, would be securing political buy-in. This section here, just before anything, I will explain what you will see in each of the sub-steps. Here is an explanation of what the sub-step is about. So it's basically here is explaining what this is about. So it's securing the political buy-in and why that is important. Then it will ask you a couple of questions for roadmap generation that are basically, they will be different depending from country to country because they are quite related to your national circumstances. And then here in the bottom, you can find more guidance on the sub-step, and there's some points on some stuff that should be considered. For example, just as an example here, it says that experience advises that it may take several months from the moment of a request for international financing until that funds are available, so that you should factor that into your process and so on. So this is some stuff that should be considered based on experience, and then some recommended actions that could also guide you or could be of use for the user. And finally, at the very bottom, you can find some tools that can help you for this particular sub-step with an explanation of what's inside there and the link so that you can access that respective resource. But going back to the questions, because I know that's probably what interests most of you, these questions are specifically tailored for the generation of the roadmap at the end of the tool. So in this case, this country would start with the BTR preparation, the BTR process preparation this month, so October 2021. So it will ask you to insert the start date. Then it asks you about the political buy-in in your country, and then you can. It's a drop-down menu where you can click yes, process ongoing. So we're in process of convincing our authorities why it is important to present a BTR by 2024. No matter what, or no, you know, my political hierarchies are not really convinced that that is a must, and so on. So then you start clicking here. Then here's is there an established process for allocating or demanding budget? Same case. Yes, no, process ongoing, and has a coordinating ministry or institution been assigned for the overall BTR process? We put yes because in most of the cases we assume that this will be the same institution that now is coordinating national communications and BURs. So probably a lot of you will be in this situation. This is just an example. And as you can see, this is how the tool works, broadly speaking. It will ask you questions. It provides also some suggestions for this based on what you replied specifically. And then once you're done with this, you should go to the bottom and click completed. Once that is done, it will open the next one. And so the tool goes. So then if you go to BTR Coordination Team, this is a very important step. The structure, as you can see, is the same. Brief introduction to the step, questions, more guidance, what should be considered, recommended actions and tools. And then the questions here are basically, do you have already a BUR or coordination, including a coordination team, including a coordinator? And then if you foresee that that team will basically stay in place for the BTR. Very basic. But what this tool is doing in the background is that it's taking consideration of your questions, of your answers, and then reply using that to calculate a respective roadmap. This is also something that could be interesting for you. When you see this sort of buttons, it will open another PDF where you can see some, in this case, some country examples of how they set up their BTR coordination teams. Once you're done, again, completed. Then step 1.3, this is a very relevant one because this is the point where you will tell the tool, first, if you have already discussed the BTR content, and then which one of the BTR non-mandatory, so to speak, components you're thinking on reporting. And in this case, it's adaptation, support needed and received, and a red plus annex. If you click no here, then the respective sub-steps in the subsequent steps will not appear, will not be available for answering the question because, of course, you replied that you will not report to that. So this is a very relevant stage for the tool, but I won't delve into the details. I just want to show you the functionalities and more or less what's in there. But as I was explaining, for example, if you did not choose red plus, then this sub-step here would not be accessible. Then step 2 is taking stock. As Mirela was saying, this is what you see when you click on the main step. It's an explanation of what's inside of the step and why the step is important. And basically, as Mirela was saying, this stock taking that the tool sort of helps you carry out by helping you ask yourself the right questions. Does not necessarily replace a gap analysis where you really see what you have in place very in detail and how that complies or not with the new requirements under the ETF and the BTRs. But here the tool will ask you whether you have conducted or not a proper gap analysis. because that, of course, would mean that you would be in a better or worse position to reply to the questions and to be able to basically reply to them correctly and properly. After that, you get questions on institutional arrangements, on GHG inventory. Let's go for the institutional arrangements first. It's a two very basic questions. Have you identified relevant institutions, and do you have relevant coordination meetings with them? And then, are there arrangements in place for data and information sharing? We are very aware that this point here might be a problem for a lot of users. But still, this, regardless of whether the answer is yes or no, this will help give you an idea of what you need to do in order to then comply with your BTR on time. Another thing that I might be forgetting here regarding functionality of the tool is that this button here will take you back to the home menu, but this button here will take you back to the BTR tool menu. So basically, if I click here, it takes me back here. But in order for this to show you the next step, you need to click on the complete button that you will see in each sub-step at the bottom right side. And then, as you can see, number 2.3, 2.4, 2.5, 2.6, and 2.7 are basically the reporting elements of the BTR, what you will report. So you report a GHG inventory, tracking of progress, adaptation, supporting and receive, and REDD+ annex. There are several questions under each one of them. I will not go into detail, but here you can take a brief look. For example, have you compiled an inventory before? Yes, no. Do you still have access to the data? Yes, no. Have you retained the capacity? Yes, no, partly. In this case, it's a country that has only partly retained the capacity, maybe because part of the GHG inventory was done through the help of consultants. Same applies for the 2006 IPCC guidelines. It could be that a country is specifically applying them for one category, but not for, or one subsector, but not all of them, and so on. QA/QC procedures, and same thing for uncertainty. All these questions are, users should reply it, and then that will affect on the subsequent steps and the calculation of your roadmap. Same thing goes for tracking of progress, adaptation, support needed, and received. I will just look at the tracking of progress now for the sake of time, because I want to hopefully be done in 10 minutes so that we have time for Q&A. So the tracking of your NDC progress is divided, same as the MPGs. This is also based, this tool is based on the MPGs. You should also know that. So you have the progress indicators for tracking your NDC target, then mitigation measures, projections. Those are the three main elements that for now, that usually, according to the MPGs, are relevant for tracking your NDC progress or are under that category. And in this case, you have to choose what type of NDC target you have. In this case, this country chose BAU target or trajectory target. But as you will see, we're just displaying 4 groups of targets. There's a reason for that. And the reason we did that is because we group them based on which other element of your MRV system it will be most likely tied up to. What I mean here is, for example, when you're talking a bit about a BAU target, the most likely indicator to follow your target will come from your GHG inventory. So then there's a connection between those two, and that is factored into the tool. But basically here, this country has a BAU target, and they have partially defined the progress indicators for all NDC targets, because it could be that a country has a BAU target plus a non-GHG target, such as, for example, percentage of renewables, and so on. Then you have questions on mitigation measures. The first two, so 2.43 and 2.44, are about mitigation measures, reporting mitigation measures. But then 2.45 and until 2.47 are based on the impacts of mitigation measures. Why they are set like that? Because, for example, for the impacts of mitigation measures, the MPGs consider flexibility, which is also something that you can reply. In this case, the country replied that this time they will not be estimating the impacts of mitigation measures because they would be requesting flexibility, and so on. Same thing for projections. In this case, the country also went for choosing flexibility. Then, as mentioned, I will jump the section on adaptation, support needed and received, and REDD+ annex. But please feel free to explore them and raise any questions if you have them. And I will go straight to step 3. So planning. This step, as you can see, has 2 different subsections. This is basically asking you how many people will be part of the full-time working on the BTR. In this case, it's, as will be probably the case with a lot of developing countries, it's a rather small team, 1 to 5 people. But here you can also see some options where, you know, there's countries that will allocate a lot of time and resources and human resources to that. But in this case, it's 1 to 5. And then the section 4.12 below, what it's intending to do is so that you can tell the tool, for purposes of the roadmap generation, which one of these activities, based on also on the composition and expertise of your team, you think could be run in parallel. For example, it could be that the team working on the GG inventory is different from the team working on the adaptation component. So that means that they could likely run in parallel. So in this case, for example, I will choose adaptation to be run in parallel with GG inventories. If you want to unchoose something here, you can click on it again. But then I choose adaptation, and I'm also going to choose mitigation measures, for example. And the same thing applies here below. So here for tracking of progress, I will say that support needed and receive will be done in parallel to NDC of tracking of progress. In this case, if I click on mitigation measures, an error will appear because I already chose that it would run in parallel with the GG inventory. That does not mean that all of this can run in parallel. Bear with me, it will make sense once you see the roadmap. So then when you're done here, again, click on completed. Section 3.2 will provide you with a summary of capacity building time required for the different sections that you replied to based on your answers. But since, of course, natural circumstances can vary enormously, we're also offering you the chance to customize this. So for example, if you're saying, no, this will not, I will definitely need more than 6 months, this will be 10, then you can put 10 here. And then if you click enter, you have to click enter, then for purposes of the roadmap, it will consider 10 months and not 6. For sake of simplicity, we will just leave it as default and we will put no. So this is a summary. According to the tool, you will need a total of 14 months in this case. This country will need 14 months in total to address the capacity gaps that they have based on the replies. Now let's click on completed. And then the implementation step is basically compiling the BTR. And so when you go to 4.1, it's very similar to what you saw before, but in this case, it's telling you the compilation time. For purposes of the roadmap, compilation time and capacity building time are separated, as you will see in a minute. But again, this is also giving you a chance to customize your reply if you think that this is exaggerated or underestimated, so that you can really tailor a roadmap based on what you also think would be the right description of your own national circumstances. Then once we click completed, there's another step of official approval, which I will skip, but basically it's asking you how much time you think that you will, after you have the whole compilation, you have to put it in one big report. So how much time you think that will take to consolidate it into one report, and also so that you can get official approval from your government, so that you can be in a position to submit it to the Secretariat. Once you have completed all of this, here's the button, Generate Roadmap. If I click on it, just bear with me a second, my computer might be a bit slow, but it's loading, that's good. It will open a roadmap. It's more of a Gantt chart if you look at it. And there you can see that each one of the elements is telling you where you start, where you end, roughly. This is the overall time for the BTR itself. This is the section and setting the scene, basically, as you can see. Then this is all the section on BTR compilation and capacity building. As you can see, capacity building is set different as compilation, but we're also assuming that they can run in parallel. That there's some stuff that could be done while you're building your capacities at the same time. Not all of it, of course. That's the reason you're building your capacities, but you can advance in a lot of the things you're doing. And this is just a rough idea. The purpose, of course, is to help you plan, to help you have a visualization of more or less how much time you would need. As you can see, there's below here, this is the color coding. You can see that dark blue is sorry, really dark blue is total time, not so dark blue is capacity building time, and then light blue is compilation or implementation time. Orange is others, like for example, setting institutional arrangements or modifying your institutional arrangements, conducting a gap analysis, and so on. This red line that you see here is the deadline for BTR submission, so the 31st of December of 2024. In this case, our country would be finalizing it just 1 month later, which means that they will not really be on time. And that's what you get, why you get this message here, where it's basically telling you you are not in time, but do not get discouraged. The whole purpose of this tool is also to help you revise your priorities. And for example, in this case, you could perfectly well decide to report on one of the elements at a later stage or not so much into detail, so that you are able to present at least the mandatory elements of your BTR in time. Let's remember that this is a iterative process that fits in. So once you finish one part of the cycle, you report one BTR, you will definitely, it is expected that countries will be improving over time. Nobody expects that everybody will present a perfect BTR the first time. The important thing is that you start planning now and that you do the best to comply with the deadline. So yes, this is what the roadmap looks like. And then if I can go back 1 second to the tool, because it's very important that you not forget about it. There are 2 more steps. These 2 steps do not influence on the roadmap, because as we were saying, the roadmap guides you until the submission of your BTR. But this is of course what comes after your BTR. So preparing for the TER, as you can see, it does not have the drop-down menu with questions, but it does have the general structure of the other one, saying what is this step, why this step is important, what you should consider, and recommended actions. These 2 buttons here will give you more information on the TER and more information on the facilitative multilateral consideration of progress. Good practice points, lessons learned, and so on. Same thing. And the improvement over time is because we want to close the cycle, as you saw in the first image that you could see when you open the tool. This is a cycle, and we're presenting it also as a cycle where once you end, you start again. But of course, with much more experience, much more knowledge, and as such, your next BTR, if you conduct the same assessment for your second BTR, then a lot of these questions should be modified, should change, and that would mean that you would probably take much less time to present your next BTR. And I think I will leave it until here. That's pretty much what's in the tool. I went by really quickly, so I'm sure that when you start looking at it in detail, you will have several questions, and I'm sure that you already have several questions. So I'm going to stop sharing the screen and allow for the Q&A session to begin. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Carlos, for the insight. And yes, there has already been quite some activity in the chat. I see that my colleagues have already started answering some of the questions, and maybe we can take up some where answers have not been provided that just came in. So I see that Gloria Namande posted, I think, 2 different questions. So Gloria, maybe you want to unmute yourself and pose these questions directly to our team. If you want to take the word, then the floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Martha. I hope you can hear me.
Yes, perfectly.
Great, thank you. My question is in regards to the capacity needs. I know it's been also responded to a bit that the capacity gaps are in terms of the technical capacity, but for countries, are we looking at also capacities in terms of the data collection or reporting around the MRV frameworks, because this is also critical for the BTR? And the other question is in regards to the technical review. Who is responsible for the technical review? Are we also having that institutionalized at country level, or this is also at a different level? Thank you so much.
Okay, so Carlos, Mirella, and Mario, Alessandro, who of you wants to maybe start responding these 2 questions?
Maybe I can take the second part of the question. So regarding the technical expert review. So as the whole enhanced transparency framework builds on existing arrangements, there's already experience with the ECA process. That's the review process that BURs undergo when developing countries. Right now, there's two different systems, of course. There's one for Annex 1 countries and one for non-Annex 1 countries. That changes with the Paris Agreement. It's just one review process for everybody. But experience tells that most of the time, the people participating in the technical expert review or the review process are the same people that develop the BUR or BTRs. It's the same team. Not all of them, of course, because that usually takes place at the sidelines of COPs. At least the FMCP part will take place at the sideline of the COP. So not everybody, of course, goes to the COP itself, but yeah, in short, most likely it will be the same people because they are the ones that are in a position to reply to the questions. And the whole purpose of the review process is to help countries improve. It's non-punitive. It's not meant to find or to punish any country, but to help find capacity gaps and help address them, suggest how they can overcome them and so on, and also that they can learn from other countries.
Thank you very much, Carlos, for your response. And I'm not sure who from the other three may want to also chip in on these two questions from Gloria.
Several reply to the question of Gloria has been given in the chat in terms of the capacity building. Everything a little bit depends, but in general, let's say that the tool talk about the technical capacity of the experts in country to be able to report. Because one of the main concern is also facing the fact that so far in several countries there's been more a kind of consultant-based kind of arrangement for preparing the report. So what we want to understand is how much of the capacity is retained by the country in order to sustain in the long term the production of such a report. So we are talking about the technical capacity. In some cases, like for example, I think that was on the GH inventory or also in the mitigation part, we are referring also to the data collection, but not necessarily in the data production side, but more in the capacity of the country to put in place a proper agreement for ensuring the flow of the data inside the flow of the BTR. Not necessarily we are looking behind the scope, more looking at the capacity of the country of producing specific data for the reporting. So we stop at the border still of the BTR process. I hope that answer.
Okay, yes, thank you, Mirella, also for insight on that. There was a question regarding whether the tool will be available in more languages than just English, and this was answered in the chat, but I do want to say it for anyone who may not have seen this in the chat. The tool will be available also in Spanish and French in around a month's time max. So everyone who signed up for this event will also get an information about this, definitely, so that you can also try out the tool in Spanish or French, either way, suiting your needs. And then we have a question that was posed by Stefania regarding, or it says, I'll just read it out. In the GHG1 section, is the preparation of the NID included? And I see Mirella nodding her head very eagerly. Maybe Mirella, you want to just say a few words to this. And I do want to encourage everyone to pose your questions in the chat. Unfortunately, to see that some participants have been having some technical issues, but if you do want to contribute, please raise your questions in the chat, or you can also raise your hand, as Carlos is doing right now, also probably aiming to answer this question. So I'll give over to Mirella and then Carlos, please.
No, please, Carlos, you raise your hand. I think that maybe you are eager to respond to the question of
yes, that is a very good question. And unfortunately, one that's not that clear-cut in the tool. So firstly, no, it's not contained in that section of the GHG inventory because it's part of the stock taking So basically, the questions that you get there are based to determine mostly whether you have done something in the past or not, to what level of proficiency you have done it or not, and then to compute the capacities that you would be lacking, and based on that also the time that you would need to produce an inventory. But saying that the tool does assume, and that's something that we might need to improve in future releases, we did assume that that would be contained in the official approval part, where it says the time that you need for consolidating a BTR, because, and that's why I say it's a good question. What the BTR requires is not an inventory itself, but it's an ID, as you properly mentioned. So, but for developing an NID, the most likely you will first need the capacities that the section 2.1.3 or 4, if I'm not mistaken. I don't have the number in the back of my head. Based on those capacities, it will probably tell you how much time you will need to generate the report. I do know that there are different activities, and I said it's something that might need to be revised in future releases. But for now, please bear with that answer. You should then consider that time as part of the consolidation of the whole document. Sorry if that's not that satisfactory, but also as a caveat, we had to produce a tool that was not that complex, because otherwise it would have been a titanic. First of all, it would have been a titanic effort that would have meant that we would not been able to release such a tool before 2024, which probably by then would have made it useless. So hope that answer is satisfactory enough. And if you have any further questions on that, please do raise them.
Thank you, Carlos. And I see, Mirela, you have your hand up. So maybe you want to contribute too, or is that a mistake?
Well, no, I want just to say that, Carlos, we can see also in the little bit the way around. Let's say that most of the country, they are not necessarily going for the full national inventory report. Still they can spell it out. Also like still a part. In the compilation phase, there is a time for the compilation of the report in terms of really doing the estimates, and in some cases, we add also time also for layout the section of the national greenhouse gases inventory part. What can be done easily can also be increased a bit the number of time, the months that we are indicating for the compilation of the inventory, in order for you also to consider the needs of the time for the compilation of the report itself. So that could be also another option in addition of the consolidated part of the report itself, of the BTR in total. So that could be also even another opportunity.
Okay, yes, thank you, Mirela and Carlos, for your insight on this. I don't see any questions right now in the chat, any new questions. I also don't see any raised hands, but maybe we can go back to a question that was raised pretty much at the beginning or maybe the middle of the event. I'm not quite sure when. This was a question whether the tool is specific for the AFOLU sector or for a whole BTR, and we did get an answer that the tool is meant for the whole BTR and not just a specific sector. But maybe my colleagues want to weigh in on this a little bit, because we might also be able to connect this question to who then is actually the person using this tool and filling it out. So maybe we can connect these two questions a little bit. And I give the floor to, well, I think Mirela has unmuted herself. So Mirela?
Well, I mean, I think that is quite funny that in both events that we had yesterday and today, as soon as they saw FAO showing up on the tool, the main question is just for the AFOLU sector. So yes, but let's say that our objective sometimes in FAO, we try just to enter in the more general tools, also to try to ensure that the tool responds also to the peculiarities sometimes of the AFOLU sector. But this tool in reality is for all sectors. So is for the preparation of the BTR in general. So not necessarily attached to a specific sector per se. But yes, indeed, Marta, I found very interesting also the question from Christina, where she was asking who should who should reply this to, and I was trying to explain also what we are trying to do already in the country, where we are trying to bring many actors in the same roundtable and to discuss each component, because as we know, the BTR contains different elements where there could be different actors that they are able to respond to the specific bits and pieces and questions that we have in the BTR. So I think that the best option could be really of bringing as many actors as possible that they have knowledge on the process per se. We can look at the back, the people that were mostly involved in the national communication and the BUR. As always, we say, everything is really an improvement of what has been done so far. So we don't have to throw away anything. We have to keep partly what the country has been built so far and try to move forward. And so bringing all these people, and again, also the question about being endorsed by somebody. That is not an issue of being endorsed. It's just a matter of sitting and start thinking about of planning. So there is not an ideal approval of the timeline, but just more support to the country to start planning for the BTR, because the deadline is very, very close.
Well, thank you very much, Mirella. And looking at the time and also at the chat with no new questions, I would say we start wrapping up this event then. And let me just share the last slide that we have, because of course for us the work is done with the tool. We're launching it yesterday and today, so it's out there now. The work begins for you guys, for you participants, and also all participants who are not here today to actually use this tool and start the process of developing the BTRs. So, well, this was the slide for the Q&A, but now we're jumping further ahead to the last slide. So with this, what we can say is, first off, thank you for your participation, of course, but also thank you very much for your interest in the tool. You can download the tool. It is available. You can use it and try it out and plan your own BTR process. As we had seen in the Mentee, many haven't started the process yet. And as Mirella mentioned, the deadline is approaching. So it is available on the PATBA website. The link is in your email inbox, but we will also send out a follow-up email with all the information. These two events that we had these days have been recorded, so you can also access those events. If you have any more questions, any insight that you want to obtain that we talked about in these two events and that you may want to rewatch. And of course, please do reach out to us, so meaning Carlos and I from the Partnership on Transparency in the Paris Agreement. The information from Carlos is right there, but of course also the Food and Agriculture Organization, where our spokesperson, so to say, is Mirella Salvatore. So these are our two head people on this tool, and they can answer any questions, any doubts, any comments that you have when you're then using the tool and applying it to your work and developing your own roadmap for the BTR. And we, with that, just want to say thank you very much for your attention and for your time, for your interest, and we wish you a great success using this tool and developing your own roadmap to developing your national BTRs. And hopefully we see a lot of you have great results with this tool. Any feedback at any moment in time is well appreciated, and you can just contact us through the contact information that is displayed, but also, of course, just the general email addresses of PATBA and FAO, because those emails will definitely reach us then through the internal channels. So thank you very much, and have a good day, good evening, good morning, wherever you are right now. And with that, yes, that's it. Thank you and goodbye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you also from my side. Bye.